Hey there, CPO here, and we're going to do the dirty frame assembly on the DRQ250, and special shout out to Ready Made RC for making this possible. All right, so the very first thing I want to do on the dirty part of the frame is figure out how to mount my ESCs. The cool thing, yet the challenging part about these types of builds is it really is up to you to figure out how to make it work. So every build's going to be a little bit different, so don't feel like the way I'm doing it is the way you need to do it, or if I'm doing it differently than you've already done it. But I tried different ways to mount the ESCs and finally came to realize that for me and my build, mounting them sideways is going to make the most sense, especially if I decide I want to fold the frame arms. Then I tried different mounting types. I tried a couple different ways of using zip ties, and I just wasn't happy. In the end, I went with a double stick tape, like a just plain 3M gray tape, and that seemed to work the best. So that's what I went with. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And plenty of room there to get my wires to those two PDB panels. And doesn't look too horrible from the bottom either. See that tape in there. Obviously, the neater job you do putting it on, the better it looks from the bottom. So I did a little bit of better job on the second half. But it is what it is. So fit those through. I have the motor wires going in between the belt and the bottom frame plate. And that kind of keeps them from getting out of line. And then I'll run those power wires just up through the middle there. I used an X-Acto knife to kind of clean off any excess tape that didn't have ESC on there. Just be careful, right? Don't cut your ESCs all up. All right, so that's what it looks like. 2 ESCs per side, and then all nice and tidy. It looks like a mess right now with all those wires, but that'll get cleaned up, I promise. And then I went ahead and soldered the positives together and the negatives together on separate boards, of course. So I have one positive plate and one negative plate. And not only will I have the ESCs, but I'll also have the other things that need to tap into power, including the battery itself into there. So, and you can see here, I could fold this arm up reasonably tight and still be okay. So now I just want to do a quick test fit. I put the battery on the clean section where I envision it's going to be. And then I just kind of want to get a test fit to figure out how long of battery cables I need. The challenge here is that if your cables are too long, you've got a bunch of excess that you're going to have to bunch up somewhere, and there's not a whole lot of room in there. And if they're too short, obviously they don't reach. So I really only have a few millimeters of variance that I can accept and still feel comfortable with the build. So I'm basically putting it all on, taking a look at how things are going to go, and just getting a good feel. I do a lot of dry fitting before I finalize installation of parts. So I'm thinking the battery's going to go there, and then I'm going to have a little battery connector right there where I'm going to plug into. So more on that when we get to the second part of this with the clean section. But that's going to plug in just like that. Now be careful with the battery and these wires. But anyway, so I just basically want to map out how long to make these battery wires to get to that power distribution board area. And once I get it figured out, I can cut those to length. Again, the battery is not plugged in when I do this since I cut both wires at once, just trying to be safety conscious here. Another quick test fit to make sure everything looks okay, and it does. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this battery connector onto the board, as well as you can see here, I also have some pigtails coming off of that for the tail lights. So a couple off of the positive and a couple off the negative, and I'll show you how those go on later. That'll be in another video. The other thing I added in was my video transmitter power adapter. This will plug straight in to the video transmitter. There's one other piece that I forgot, which I'll eventually add in later, which is another positive and negative, basically to give the battery voltage to the flight controller for telemetry monitoring. I wasn't real sure how that was going to work out when I got this part of the build done, so eventually I'm going to add in that part. Now on the bottom of this, you've got the two screws that hold the PDB on, and now that I've done pretty much most of the soldering on this, I want to deal with these, and you can see they're conductive on the bottom. So I basically have a positive and a negative post on the bottom, which I don't like. So I'm going to use some liquid tape just to seal that over so it's protected. I don't want to, I mean, there's a risk in accidental short if you have anything metal that would bridge those two screws. That would basically be like bridging your battery positive and negative together. So here's what it looks like after I've coated it, nice and protected. If you don't have liquid tape, you can probably find something else that will work suitably well, maybe even an epoxy or a hot glue or something to cover that. Now I'm going to put these RMRC motor mounts on. The cool thing about these is they come with a really great instruction sheet you can download from Ready Made RC. It's a little bit challenging, kind of a thought puzzle, but you've got these wedges that you're going to put on in a certain way, and the manual kind of makes it clear. So I put blue thread lock inside the motor because I don't want thread lock getting on this plastic. It will destroy it. So you just follow the instructions and put them. There's numbers 1 and numbers 2. Number 1 and a number 2 per side, and then there's a very specific orientation. Basically, what you're trying to do is get those motors tilted forward, and it makes sense if you look at it like that. But I'm not going to try and recreate the user manual on that because the manual actually makes it pretty clear. Just read through it a couple times, make sure you understand it. It'll make your life easier. So once I get everything in the right orientation, then I'll just slip the first screw through. The trick here is not tighten down any of the screws any more than you absolutely have to just to get the thread started before you get all 4 screws in. If you tighten even one of them down, everything's going to kind of get misaligned, and it's going to be a pain in the butt. So leave everything super loose while you get all 4 of those screws threaded in. And then once you get all 4 of them in, then you can go through and kind of tighten them down. Just get them snug. It's very easy with this plastic. This I think this is ABS probably to over tighten. So they'll snug up nice, and then that thread lock will hold them in place that I put inside the threads on the motor. But you can see there I've got a 10-degree tilt forward now. Make sure it's tilting in the right direction. And you know, the skinny part of the wedge goes forward on the top, and the fat part goes forward on the bottom of that mount. And it makes more sense, you know, once you take a look at it. And then make sure your motor wires are laying up against the arm. That also makes it nice and easy. But there we go. And I've also got the motors in the proper orientation, counterclockwise versus clockwise. So you have to look at your particular flight controller to see which direction, but generally in a quad, your front left motor is going to rotate clockwise, your front right's going to be counterclockwise, and then the back motors are going to be just the opposite of that. So now that I've got the motors in place, what I'm going to do is just hand twist the motor wires to the ESC wires, and I am putting on a little bit of shrink tube so that if these turn out to be the right setting for those motor direction, then I can just go ahead and solder them and then shrink tube over them. So once I have them like that, I'm going to go ahead and connect my battery with the receiver, which I've already done the basic setup just to be able to talk to it, and the ESC wire for that particular motor, and then let it throttle up and see if the motor spins the right direction. If it doesn't, I swap any 2 wires. If it does spin the right direction, then I'll just go ahead and solder those into place. And here's what they look like when they're done. So I'm not using bullets on these. I just twisted them up, soldered them, folded them over, and then shrink tubed them. So nice and easy. There are probably more eloquent ways to do it, but that worked for me. And then I do the same thing with all 4 of the motors. And because I'm not using that little space where a foot would go, that's where I'm zip tying those wires down. So that keeps them locked down there. So now it's looking like a total rat's nest, but it really is starting to come together. So this essentially is the dirty section. I've got my ESCs, all of my connections to the battery, and then also my ESC wires are going to come up and connect to the flight controller, and the motors are installed. That's it. Pretty simple. Looks nice and clean from the bottom, and of course all of this will get cleaned up in the future when I get the top section on. While I've got access to everything right now, I'm just going to go ahead and set my throttle low and high points, going into programming mode with the high stick whenever I power on, and I'm just going through this systematically with each ESC. Just using channel 1. There are ways to do this with the flight controller. There's also ways to do them all at once with your transmitter, like the Tyrannus. I could set all 4 channels basically to output with the throttle stick, but it's just easy to do it this way really quick and set my high and low points. So that's it. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. The next video will cover the clean section build and basically probably up to the final assembly. I will give you a hint. I've already done a maiden hover, and the thing is meeting and even exceeding my expectations. I'm very excited about it, and so you'll see some of that here pretty soon. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Telemetry lost. Telemetry recovered. Telemetry lost.